pro-European Union. Of course, they said yes.
So the Euro communists were for the EU, and the regular, more Stalinist type of communists were against it. That's true in the context of the Cold War, which was still going on in the 1980s. On that note, we do need to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay with us.
Don't go away, because there's more on the Nationalist Report. Brought to you by VOR, ReasonRadioNetwork.com.
It looks like Greece has been bonding with the wrong crowd. Goldman Sachs is being blamed for designing a complex debt plan that earned them millions, but maybe leaving the country in ruins. Megan Carpenter is a contributor for the Washington Independent. She joins us now from our New York studio. Megan, first we bail out Goldman Sachs. Now there are reports that Goldman Sachs designed a plan to help Greece hide its debt, which could in turn spur another global financial crisis. What is going on here?
Well, that's a complex question to answer, which I'll try to condense down. In effect, when Greece entered the Eurozone, they fudged some of the numbers about their deficits and continued to pile them up. And Goldman Sachs worked with them in 2005 to design a plan by which they would issue bonds in another currency and use a fake exchange rate to reap more money out of that than they should have, something that they would then be paying off in a couple of years. Now that the debt crisis has intensified in Greece, these numbers are coming to light because the statistical agency in the Eurozone has looked into Greece's figures and said, hey, these aren't quite right. And the more they dig in, the more they realize that Greece was more in debt all along than anybody realized except Greece and, it turns out, Goldman Sachs.
Well, talk to me about the connection, Greece and the United States. What will happen if Greece falls into this crisis? Is it possible that this could, again, have an impact on the United States?
Well, that's what most analysts are saying, that there will be some impact coming back to the United States, just because whatever plan goes through in Europe, the global economy is so connected that something will blow back in the United States. Goldman Sachs actually sold its stake in this Greek mess that it contributed back to a Greek bank in order to minimize its own risk. So Goldman Sachs is now out of the mess that it got Greece into, and Greece is stuck with these debts from Goldman Sachs. Something will be blowing back to the United States if this crisis gets a lot worse.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of things are interconnected these days. But, you know, let's break this down. Nothing that Goldman Sachs did was illegal, and yet millions of people could be in some real trouble here. How can we minimize the effects this has on our economy?
Well, I think what the administration is trying to do and what they're trying to do in Europe is bring a level of transparency to the financial sector. One of the biggest problems that caused the housing meltdown and the financial crisis in the United States in the first place was trading in complex financial instruments that no one, either trading or buying them, really understood to a great degree. Everyone made money to start with, so no one looked into them too deeply. Then when it turns out that they were all kind of losing propositions, no one understood what they were. It's taking years to just unwind the credit default swaps that Goldman and AIG engaged in, and we're still not even done with that yet. So the idea of bringing more transparency to the system, to reducing the too big to fail problem where one company's failure can bring down an entire economy, is something that U.S. regulators and global regulators are trying to figure out a way around.
You know, Megan, when we talk about countries that the U.S. does business with, per se, we think about China, we think about Great Britain, even France. But Greece is one of those countries that we don't talk a lot about, especially when it comes to financial dealings. Do you think that there are more situations like this in other countries, either concerning Goldman Sachs or other large banks like this?
I mean, most of the investment banks and the commercial banks are invested in many countries throughout the world. And after the 1998 crisis, the U.S. instituted a Know Your Customer policy where commercial banks had to really go investigate what kind of banks, what kind of financial markets they were invested in other countries. And a lot of commercial banks and investment banks pulled back, and others stepped forward to take their place. This is a thing that's happened before, when no one thought we were particularly invested in Thailand in 1998, and yet the Asian financial crisis had ramifications on our financial markets as well. So the idea that we can minimize risk by not investing in a country is just not valid in a global economy when everyone is investing in everyone else, and your investors are investing in other people. Everyone is trading in U.S. Treasuries, so everyone is involved in this economy.
All right, Megan Carpenter with the Washington Independent joining us live from our New York studio.
Let's return to the Nationalist Report, brought to you by VOR, ReasonRadioNetwork.com.
Welcome back to the Nationalist Report. We're talking today to Aris Arion. He is a journalist from Greece associated with EuropaNetwork.org. Aris, let's pick up where we left off. What sort of changes did joining the EU bring to Greece in 1981? What sort of sovereignty did Greece have to give up, and what sort of benefits did it get out of joining the EU, if any?
All right. In 1979, it was signed the treaty of Greece to become a full member, but actively started in 1981. In 1981, the government of Greece was PASOK, was a social democratic political party. Is the same party that right now is in power in Greece. And before becoming a full member, Greece, this party was opposite to the idea of Greece becoming a member of European Union. Of course, it was against NATO and against of remaining in Greece the American military bases. But afterwards, when they came in power, they changed, reversed their policy, and they said the European Union is something very good and we have to stay, and we have to remain inside NATO for very many reasons, and also the American bases and not leave from Greece.
So you're saying these politicians didn't keep their promise? That's almost unimaginable. And
the very first step was, the policy of European Union is a country to lose sovereignty. And how can lose sovereignty? Is when you lose the ability to produce by yourself food for your people, and when you are dependable. This is the very first level. So what they did, they made some agreements with European Union in production of milk, production of meat, production of fruits,